T is for tenacious, R is for ridiculous, U is for unrelenting, M is for mean, and P is for petty. Trump. Oh, and C is for, I think there's new evidence it's chronic. It's Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by LA Golf. It starts right now. It is Hot Mics presented by LA Golf. We're live on TuneIn and YouTube, and I am coming to you from an undisclosed location in Mid-Coast, Maine, in a top-secret bunker. Okay, it's my bedroom. Fine. That's where we are. Billy Bush, and I'm happy to be with you. There's lots to discuss. We launched Hot Mics on January 13th of 2025. We're only about 6 months old. And I was frankly impressed from the get-go with Trump 2.0 out of the gate. Known the guy, obviously, for a very long time in my life, but mostly I was impressed with his smashing of the woke culture, the cancel culture with a hammer. Of course, I had a vested interest in that, having been hammered while the man himself escaped. Even if Trump was too severe at times, because things had gotten extreme, right? And they needed to be severe. They needed unsubtle correction. Since we launched Hot Mics, I have intermittently asked the question, posed the question to you, the audience, does the good still outweigh the bad? And I, again, remember how unbelievably, overwhelmingly, capitulatingly popular Trump was in the very beginning, in the first couple of months. I mean, all his old enemies were folding like deck chairs and acting like his best friends. Does the good still outweigh the bad? Stick a pin in that for a second. So, for all human beings, good and evil dwells within us. In Trump's case, it lives outside of him. For all that, all those people who say he is the devil, I say his authenticity accounts for those flaws. Nothing he does or says that would be appalling attached to anyone else is truly shocking, right? We know him. He is pugnacious. He is petty as can be. He's willful. He's charismatic. He's magnetic. He's funny. He's mean. He's insensitive, calculating, untrustworthy, disloyal. By the way, disloyal while requiring extreme loyalty of others. But the greatest of all of these is petty. Donald Trump's latest move after announcing a $200 million Mar-a-Lago-esque remodeling and expansion of the White House State Ballroom spanning 90,000 square feet, seating for 650 people now, up from 200 million in the existing East Room. Donald wants an auditorium, but wait, hold on. Construction is supposed to begin in September, but it won't be completed until early January 2029, which would be like his last week in office when the next president is to be inaugurated. Forget that the cheesiest, gaudiest man in real estate is in charge of design in the White House. He's only going to be able to enjoy it for a farewell dinner? Or is he planning to stay? I think he's planning to stay. In order to put this ballroom together, and you saw him walking around on the roof, just all of a sudden Donald Trump appears on the roof and he's inspecting where all this is going to go. He's pointing to everybody. He bypasses the National Capital Planning Commission, of course. Now, normally that takes a couple of years of scrutiny and approval for the NCPC to approve anything being done in the White House. But there's a loophole here, of course, because Donald Trump's donors are paying for it. Who knows? Maybe CBS, ABC, and NBC are paying for it. Donald's already gilded up the Oval Office. And he's already paved over the Rose Garden. Yeah. Gone is the beautiful grass. There is the terrace, Mar-a-Lago style, where he can sit outside and have an Arnold Palmer. I love Arnold Palmer. Boy, when the other people saw him in the shower, the other pros, they were like, oh my God. I had to do it. I had to say it. Yeah. He's got a paved patio and gold statues on the mantles and gold painted stars on the ceiling. He's gilded up the Oval Office. But back to petty. Trump's latest move, perhaps you've heard, is the relocation of the presidential portraits of H.W. Bush 41, W. Bush 43, and Barack Obama 44. They were all in the highly visible entryway in the White House, and now they are no longer visible to tourists, state visitors, foreign leaders, etc. They have been moved to a hidden stairwell. Bill Clinton, I guess, is okay. Fellow Epstein alum, I don't know, horn dog. And Biden, well, his portrait isn't complete yet, but when it is, that will go in the boiler room, and you know it. But Obama is now at the top of the grand staircase in a corner where only people with sort of residential access can see it. So I think Trump has it when he goes up the staircase, if he ever walks the stairs, to see it as he goes into the residence. Maybe it makes him feel good to see Obama there on the wall, only himself, because then it's a reminder that only he sees it and that the rest of the world doesn't. He's been obsessed with minimizing Barack Obama since he ran for office, and doubted that the man was born in the United States and thus should be disqualified to be president. And then it, of course, has continued. Like his obsession with Rosie is no different than his obsession with Barack Obama. When he gets obsessed, he gets really, really petty. And he's launched an investigation, obviously. He ordered Sham Bondi to begin a grand jury probe into allegations that Obama manufactured intelligence about Russian interference in the 2016 election. Of course, the birth certificate I mentioned. But really where the pettiness comes over Obama, he's still pissed off. Trump is still pissed off about the White House Correspondents' Dinner when Obama got up and Trump was in the audience and wanted to run for president, and Obama just slapped him around, made fun of him about the whole birther controversy and, his tacky style and everything, his fake orange tan, and Trump stored that away. The room was laughing, and he was seething and storing it away. And he's obsessed about it, and he's never been able to let it go. As for the Bushes, George H.W. Bush 41 called him a blowhard in 2018. That's as nasty as H.W. Bush gets, blowhard. But H.W. also, it became known, voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, a lifelong Republican president, vice president to Ronald Reagan, president of the United States, strong conservative agenda. And the guy votes for Hillary Clinton. That's how repulsed he was. He never said it publicly, but that's how repulsed he was by Trump as a person. So he did. As for 43, I think he abstained in 2016, didn't vote for either. But Trump also hates 43 because he likes the Obamas, and the Obamas like him. Whenever you see, any occasions where former presidents are together, W's often laughing, having fun with Michelle Obama, having a good time. You see it at Carter's funeral. George W. walked in, smacked Barack Obama in the belly like a backhanded thing. It's kind of funny, but I found this clip. This is what I know. Let me tell you, I'll pause to say right now, like, It's the ultimate like shitty irony in my life that I'm related to two very decent men who were president of the United States, but might be remembered for my relationship with the current one. Like, that irony is some shit that I have to live with, but you know, NBC News made sure of that by doing all they could to take him out of the 2016 presidential election. I played my part, no question about it. I followed that man wherever he went in the early years of my reporting at Access Hollywood and all that. But when I think of presidents and character, here's an example. Here's W passing the torch to Obama.
Last night, I had a warm conversation with President-elect Barack Obama. I congratulated him and Senator Biden on their impressive victory. I told the President-elect he can count on complete cooperation from my administration as he makes the transition to the White House.
Yeah, I mean, how important to this country is Barack Obama? Even worse than the Bushes being relegated, to a foreign staircase, is the first African-American president in the history of America, a country who has a history of racism and slavery. And all of a sudden we have a two-term president. He should be prominently featured in the evolution and the history of America. And he's at the top of a staircase where no one can see him but your fat ass when you go home to put on your slippers and watch my friend Jesse Waters on television. No offense to Jesse. We like Jesse. He's mad at 43 because while George and Laura Bush attended the inauguration this past January, they left afterwards and did not attend the inaugural luncheon. He's mad about that. Trump, who did not attend Joe Biden's inauguration at all because he was in protest. I mean, oh my God. This is something else that I've learned because a friend was at the White House last week and took a picture for me of the East Wing of the White House, where the first ladies' portraits hang on the wall. All of our first ladies. Look what he did. In between Laura Bush and Pat Nixon, I believe that is on the right, is a 3D weird rendering of Donald Trump by an artist named Maga Angelo. Stay out of the East Wing. You're putting yourself in the middle of the first ladies, these beautiful classic portraits, and that piece of shit goes in the middle? I mean, it's unbelievable. As for Hillary Clinton, by the way, her portrait, gone altogether. Can't even find it. So, in the modern era of White House portraits, presidents and first ladies have invited their predecessors throughout time and former staff and family and friends and for these unveiling ceremonies, right? They show a generosity of spirit. They show respect. They're great little traditions. Remember when George H.W. Bush was interviewed by Dan Rather, and Dan Rather was pressing him on whether he was tough enough to be president. I think about that all the time. Tell you why.
One of the major questions on George Bush is he tough enough to be president?
But is tough being nasty, or is tough being a leader that people respect? Is toughness shouting and being ugly and trying to stick a knife in somebody? Or is it principle and leadership where you look over your shoulder and people are following? Let somebody else go out. It's not toughness. Toughness, go out there and say something ugly about somebody? I don't think that.
God, is that class? I hate to say it. Yes, he's my uncle, but that's the kind of leadership. That's what is this, tough? Are you tough enough to be president? And of course, don't forget the letter in the desk that George H.W. Bush left for Bill Clinton. Remember, H.W. Bush was not happy that he had lost that election. Ross Perot came in. He lost to Bill Clinton. He was hurt by it and didn't see character-wise, Bill Clinton on the same platform, same level as him. But, they later became great friends, and he wrote that letter to Bill Clinton saying, this is your office now, and you're leading the country, and we stand by you, and we support you. And imagine, that's so important to, how have we lost that? How have we lost that? How is that okay with you? If it is okay with you, well, we'll get into that, because people, sacrificed that because they thought they were getting something else. And we'll get into that. But why do we allow for assholes in political office? They represent us, right? They represent us in our states and across the world. Look, you can be tough, but an asshole? Why is it crucial to tear down other people in order to elevate yourself? The most interesting battle going on right now in our politics is this game of Tom and gerrymandering going on between the big blue Democrats of California and the angry red Republicans of Texas. In 40 states in this country, one party controls the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. That's called the trifecta, and it happens in 40 states in this country. It's unbelievable. And in this case, this whole gerrymandering thing, I think Trump is a bully, but he's right in this regard. J.D. Vance said it on Fox Business. Listen to this.
You still count illegal aliens for congressional apportionment. So California has way more House seats than it should because they have such a high population of illegal aliens. So they get rewarded for welcoming illegal aliens into their state, giving them federal benefits, actually asking the taxpayers of states like Ohio to subsidize them. And then those same taxpayers in Ohio and Indiana and elsewhere, they have fewer congressional representatives because of what California has allowed to happen. That's ridiculously unfair. And the only real way to fight back against it is for us to redistrict in some ways as aggressively as these hard blue states have done.
It's true. I mean, Vance isn't wrong. When you do a census, and Trump wants to do a new one, but unfortunately for Donald, you can't do that until 2030. But, of course, he bends the rules, so maybe he'll do it before. But, illegal aliens and undocumented people in every state count in the census. And therefore, that counts towards how many congressional seats are given per state. So if California is letting in all kinds of undocumented illegal people, then they're getting more congressional seats. So, in Texas, people all assume that what they're doing in Texas is actually, the aggression, but it's really a response to what's been happening in California, because it's a razor thin, difference. Governor Newsom responded and said, make no mistake, California's moving forward. We're talking about emergency measures to respond to what's happening in Texas, as if they didn't start it. And we will nullify what happens there, meaning we will do what we have to do to add even more congressional seats than the 40 that they already have in Washington. If we don't put a stake in the heart of this administration, says Newsom, there may not be an election in 2028. They're not screwing around. We've got to fight fire with fire. This is where our politics is going. Now, back away from Governor Newsom, who set the tone of this nastiness? You know who did. Governor Kathy Hochul in New York. This is a war. We are at war, she says. That's why the gloves are off, and I say bring it on. So now they're going to gerrymander and add more congressional seats for Democrats. Any politician here, Kathy, Gavin, Donald Trump, who grapples for the moral high ground, exposes themselves as a total phony. There is no high ground. It used to be a noble cause, public service. It's now a dirty-ass business until people decide they've had enough and demand that decency return. I'm one of them. I'm sick and tired of it. It's disgusting. But to understand Donald Trump, you really have to watch the movie The Apprentice. And I'm sure a lot of people get confused and think that it is a movie about his television show and the making of it. It's not. Donald is the apprentice, and he was the apprentice to his mentor, the man that taught him everything, and that is Roy Cohn, who was a scumbag lawyer from New York, who taught Donald how to cheat, chisel, and win, basically. And Roy Cohn had several principles that he taught Donald Trump, and Donald took fastidious notes. And, you can't deny, well, not of the highest character, he's had some success. And when he has not had success, he knows how to deflect it, blame somebody else. The tenets of Roy Cohn taught to Donald Trump: 1, never admit default, never admit defeat. Roy Cohn specifically said, never admit you're wrong, never apologize. I'm just thinking about poor Melania right now, but I think she knew what she was getting. In business, right? You look at Donald Trump's life. In 1991, he had the famous Taj Mahal bankruptcy in Atlantic City. He framed him filing for Chapter 11 at the time as strategic genius. He spun it that way. Trump University, remember the Trump University fraud suits? Donald settled for $25 million in 2016, but never admitted defeat. He said it was politically motivated. These were attacks on him, and he just wanted to get it up. Never admitted that this was a fraudulent university, but it was as fraudulent as his vodka line and his steak knives and whatever else he was selling. But he used the publicity of that Trump University settlement to focus on his presidential agenda. He made them the ones coming after him. Again, he's always the victim, right? In the 1980s, Trump used undocumented Polish laborers to build Trump Tower, that beautiful giant tower he's so proud of, built by undocumented laborers from Poland. They sued him for unsafe working conditions and unpaid wages. Trump denied that he knew they were undocumented. Oh, the irony. He denied knowing that conditions were not safe, despite a court finding that they absolutely were. He dragged on the whole thing for years until it got so quiet and forgotten, and then he settled with these Polish undocumented workers with no fanfare. The Roy Cohn tenet, never admit defeat or fault, applies, of course, to politics. The 2020 election claims that it was rigged. By the way, claims before the 2024 election, just before election night, on election night, he was saying, hey, we've got reports in Arizona and Texas and all these places that there's foul activity going on at the polls, setting the stage for the tantrum he would throw if he were to lose. He, of course, won Electoral College and popular vote, but he was setting the stage for the same shit as 2020. Another Stop the Steal series of rallies, and who knows, maybe another January 6th. Another tenet of Roy Cohn's that he passed on to Donald Trump: attack, don't defend. Donald Trump's media strategy, define the narrative. Counterattacking is way more effective than explaining. Spy magazine called Donald a short-fingered vulgarian. You remember that? He sent angry letters. He attacked the editors. He sent pictures of his hands for years. They're wrong. They're wrong. How about the Megyn Kelly debate question in August of 2015, when Donald took the stage with all those Republican candidates for the first time? He went on the offense after the Rosie O'Donnell question. You've called women fat pigs and slobs and all this stuff. He went on the offense and questioned Megyn's professionalism. How dare this dirty journalist, this agenda, this biased person ask me this question? Totally legitimate. And he made everything about her. She had blood coming out of her, whatever it was. He spun it around and made it about her. And of course, the Access Hollywood bus tape, right? In the debate, they brought it up. These are the things that you've said. And he immediately turned it around and made it about Bill Clinton and thus Hillary Clinton. He looked at her and said, Bill Clinton said worse to me on a golf course. Done. Look at what he's done with Elon Musk. He's a crazy person. After the full embrace, he's turned around and made Elon a crazy outcast. Mike Pence for doing the right thing. He was so pissed off at Mike Pence for not, for certifying the vote, which of course every Republican admitted, every real Republican admitted that was a legitimate vote in 2020. And he excommunicated Mike Pence for doing the right thing. Another tenet of Roy Cohn: delay, obstruct, outlast your opponents. No greater example than the 2020 election. Arizona, Georgia, injecting chaos to the recounts, shaming and attacking all those state election officials. And in business, time and cost can cause settlements like those Polish workers in the 80s. He has plans right now to federalize control of Washington, D.C., take it away from its from local elections, citing crime numbers that aren't there. Crime is down this year compared to last year, but Trump is selling this agenda, this full of shit agenda that crime's out of control. He just wants control of it. He just wants to clean it up and make it his beautiful yard. But you're not even going to be around for it, or are you? Unless he stays in office somehow. That's not over, folks. The 22nd Amendment is there for changing as far as he sees it. Another tenet of Roy Cohn: loyalty is everything, but it's transactional. Fierce loyalty to those who are useful, like Pam Bondi, but cut them like trash as soon as they become a liability. 1 million people in his wake. Me, Michael Cohen, from a fixer to a rat for cooperating with the feds. Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, right? An early and key supporter of Donald Trump's. In 2016, he became the attorney general, but he had to recuse himself from the Russia investigation that brought hellfire and fury and constant relentless attacks by Donald Trump. John Bolton, national security advisor, embraced Donald because of the America First agenda, and Donald embraced him, and then ended up calling him a dope and incompetent when he wouldn't lie for him. Another tenet of Roy Cohn's that he taught Donald Trump: court publicity, good or bad. Visibility equals power. Have you ever known anyone to live rent-free in our heads like he does? Controversy equals advantage, right? In his mind, nobody has shifted the Overton window like Donald Trump. Ideas once thought insane, he has managed to, make them cudgels of his power. Court publicity, good or bad? How about all the fights he's picked with Rosie O'Donnell and Barbara Walters, and, teasing old Joe Biden, his legal battles and his felonies? They're all positive to him. They're weapons for look what they're trying to do to make him the ultimate victim as he, cancels victim culture everywhere else. His many golf club championships. He's got one, the newest one, last week in Palm Beach. The 79-year-old man once again won the men's club championship. Senior men, but I'm a senior. Over 50. Bullshit. Bullshit. You're an okay golfer. You cheat. It's legendary. He's never won a club championship at a club he did not own. And then there is this story. I've never told this story, but I hosted the Miss USA pageant in Baltimore for NBC and the Trump Organization. And this was back when I was chummy as hell with Donald Trump, because he was the king of NBC ratings in the Apprentice, and I was, the host of Access Hollywood, or correspondent who became host in 2013 4. So I was a new host along with Nancy O'Dell. And she and I were on the network, and we co-hosted the Miss USA pageant from Baltimore. And I'll never forget when Trump arrived 2 hours before show. He came after dress rehearsal before the big broadcast, and he was backstage and, reviewing the ladies in their bikinis and heels, like it was, like Kim Jong-un, reviewing the Communist Army. And he is back there. I hear him, and he's calling my name, Billy, Billy, where are you, Billy? Billy, Billy. And I came out, still putting my tie on. I'm like, hey, what's up, Donald? And he said, Billy, how are the girls? And have you seen the top 10? You were there for the rehearsal. Did you see the top 10? Are they strong? And I said, very beautiful, all of them. They're amazing. Yeah. Any surprises? Everything looks like it should. And I said, well, I mean, there's some surprises, of course, but some great ones. Look, I spend a lot of my time in Maine. I'm super psyched about Maine. I love, she made it into the top 10, which is awesome. I don't think Maine's ever made it in. This is great. So I'm pumped. And he's like, wait a minute, Maine, that seems like an odd state for pageant. And I said, yeah, it's a first, but yeah, and at first I think Oklahoma always in the top 10. She didn't make it. So hats off to Maine. Take that, Oklahoma. He's turned around and he said, let's make sure we get rid of Maine and put Oklahoma in the top 10. Now, this is a PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, I can't remember which firm it was, accounting firm, but it's a sanctioned event. It's a competition. It's on national television. He fixed it right there. He got rid, and I didn't, I just had left at that point. But when I was on stage and reading the names, I'll never forget it. Miss Oklahoma. And Maine was not in there. And I got to look that person up. 2005, Miss Maine, whoever that was, you made it into the top 10. We all talked about it backstage. I didn't report it officially, but everybody knew, about what happened to Miss Maine. I should write her a letter. We'll find her. But it's amazing. Just without batting an eye, he'll do something like that. You cut corners there, you're cutting corners everywhere in life. As our chief executive and commander-in-chief representing America. Whew. It's unbelievable. So does the good outweigh the bad? The better question is there any good left? But why has he been successful? Well, pretty simple, I think. One, self-inflicted wounds by Democrats. Hillary, Joe Biden, then Kamala Harris. The Democrats love to coronate candidates. Pick them, stick them out there, and they pick the worst ones. Ones that even Donald Trump can beat. Two, perceived competence. People know Donald Trump's character. January 6th, the golf tournament, Stormy Daniels, whatever. But they thought he would be an effective executive. So they were willing to overlook his corrupt personality and character because they thought he was competent. The problem on the competent side is 6 months into the second administration here, and public confidence is in the toilet. 25% of Americans say his policies actually help them. 1/4 of people, 50% of people say they feel hurt by his policies. His approval rating is 37%. And among independents right now, it's 29%. Really low. There are reasons. The reasons for these shitty numbers, the erratic inflationary tariffs, a burden on business, spooking consumers and Wall Street alike, wage stagnation right now, weakening job growth. I mean, Jesus, he fired the director of labor statistics, Erica McIntyre, or whatever her name is. He fired the woman for putting out an honest report quoting actual numbers that exist. He was so mad at the numbers, not taking any accountability for his own performance in running the government. He fired the woman who printed the stats. There are deep cuts to the National Institute of Health and NOAA and USAID and FEMA, and we've eradicated scientific research left and right. Inspector generals, we've gotten rid of oversight entirely in our government. For his loyal supporters, how about the about face on Epstein and his vow to fight the deep state? All bullshit. He still hasn't delivered on Epstein. He's still covering that up. How about him ending the war on in Ukraine on day one? I'll end it right away. It never would have began if I was there. I'll end it as soon as I get there. You're going to go meet with Putin, and you still don't know how you're going to get out of this, and you aren't. You underestimated Putin. He made a fool of you, and come on, don't worry. He's done it to other presidents. But for Democrats, you got to, in general, going forward, you got to stop reminding people and harping on Donald Trump's corruption and his, poor character. They know. You don't have to tell them. They know. Constantly reminding people is kind of perpetually saying, see, I told you so. Ha ha, you were wrong. We told you about Donald Trump. People don't want to hear that. MAGA, like the hardcore MAGA, they know they have a lemon on their hands too. But rubbing their faces in it, only makes them dig in deeper. They don't want to admit that they were, wrong. I would say, wait, leave him alone and let them throw him out. The best thing Democrats can do is just highlight stories of his ineptitude. They won't tolerate it. There's an article in The Atlantic that's very interesting called The Unforgivable Sin. And it's worth a read. But it basically talks in depth about the one thing people won't forgive is, shitty stewardship of the country. They literally know the character of the man and how compromised it is, but they don't care because they just want a better life. But the fact that matters is we're adding all this money to the deficit and, $3-4 trillion, and there's big cuts, and the rich are making off even better. How about the income inequality in this country is really where the biggest problem is. I saw Scott Galloway talking the other day. He's like, anyone making over $10 million, tax the shit out of them. $15 million up in there, tax the shit out of them. Billionaires' taxes should be massive. We got to reset here. And, I feel like I'm sounding like a liberal, which I'm not. I'm an independent. But the extreme wealth gap in the country makes me sick. I'm not for socialism. I'm not for that shit. But I do think there is, a heavier tax on the extremely wealthy. You know why? And Galloway said this. You're not getting any happier in the 15, 20, 30, 40 million dollars. All that is, that's bait for unhappier. You don't need that extreme type of wealth when too many people are starving. That's the fact. Anyway, I had to talk about this today. Thank you for being with me because, I'm always trying to look the other way and take the high road. I got a lot of history with the man, but I have more history with an uncle and a cousin who were president and for whom character was important. I remember when character was important in this country. I remember when Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, fought like crazy during the day and in the halls of government. But at 5 o'clock, told a joke, had a cocktail, and were decent to each other. That's got to matter. It's our only way out. Hot Mics today brought to you by LA Golf. Check out lagolf.com. And by the way, get some clubs and equipment designed by Bryson DeChambeau for yourself that'll let you win a club championship where you won't have to cheat. lagolf.com. Before we go, a final word from George H.W. Bush, whose portrait has been removed by Donald Trump and stuck in a remote stairwell. He was a decent and very good man. When it hurt him the most, and he lost to Bill Clinton, and he was giving that speech, a concession speech in Houston, Texas, he rose to the highest levels of character, and I won't forget it. I hope you don't either, because we got to demand that in this country. All right, here's George H.W. Bush on how to lose. Bye.
Here's the way we see it, and the country should see it, that the people have spoken, and we respect the majesty of the democratic system. I just called Governor Clinton over in Little Rock and offered my congratulations. He did run a strong campaign. I wish him well in the White House, and I want the country to know that our entire administration will work closely with his team to ensure the smooth transition of power. There is important work to be done, and America must always come first. So we will get behind this new president and wish him well.